Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is David Novak. I have a number of friends on Facebook who have read The House of Mirth by Edith Wharton, and so I thought that I would just read a Facebook post that I made. There will be spoilers, not so much in what I have to say prefatory, but then I will read an excerpt from one of the final chapters of the book itself, and that will reveal some of the plot. So if you think that you might be wanting to read the book and not be surprised, I would suggest you skip this video or skip that part of the video. A good book does not depend on any kind of secrecy about the plot or surprise value. So this is a good book. So even if you find out something about the plot, it would not spoil your reading of the book, I think. But some people don't like to have that kind of foreknowledge. The antepenultimate chapter of House of Mirth reaches an intensity that I didn't think possible in a novel. The next chapter remains at a high pitch, from which the following excerpt is taken. Don't read if you are afraid of spoilers. It's a powerful work, probably more so than either The Age of Innocence or Ethan Frome, to my mind. The use of pharmaceuticals toward the end cheapened the story, and the telegraphing felt transparent. The only possible moral conclusion that can be drawn from the book, presumably not one that Wharton herself subscribed to, is that for a woman, a life of solitude, in other words, a life without husband and progeny, is not and cannot be worth living. It is not a verdict that sits well with our time. However, in the hermetically sealed social world that Wharton brings to life, it's something of a foregone conclusion. Lucy and Selden are a better pair than Beatrice and Benedick, however, without the dishonesty of Shakespeare's conclusion in Much Ado About Nothing. What a book! I looked into the great tradition by Leavis, which unfortunately has no index. Henry James gets a chapter of his own, acknowledgement as one of the greats, but not Wharton. She admired James, whose books I couldn't stand in school. I wonder how I would feel now. I disliked the Wharton story Roman Fever when I first read it, much earlier, and still detested it when I revisited it later. But after these three novels, I have to give Wharton a place. From the penultimate chapter, and the first sentence is amended by me slightly to get you into the flow of it. It was not from the vision of material poverty that she turned with the greatest shrinking. She had a sense of deeper impoverishment, of an inner destitution compared to which outward conditions dwindled into insignificance. It was indeed miserable to be poor, to look forward to a shabby, anxious middle age, leading by dreary degrees of economy and self-denial to gradual absorption in the dingy communal existence of the boarding house. But there was something more miserable still. It was the clutch of solitude at her heart, the sense of being swept like a stray uprooted growth down the heedless current of the years. That was the feeling which possessed her now, the feeling of being something rootless and ephemeral, mere spindrift of the whirling surface of existence, without anything to which the poor little tentacles of self could cling before the awful flood submerged them. And as she looked back, she saw that there had never been a time when she had had any real relation to life. Her parents, too, had been rootless, blown hither and thither on every wind of fashion, without any personal existence to shelter them from its shifting gusts. She herself had grown up without any one spot of earth being dearer to her than another. There was no center of early pieties, of grave, endearing traditions to which her heart could revert and from which it could draw strength for itself and tenderness for others. In whatever form a slowly accumulated past lives in the blood, whether in the concrete image of the old house stored with visual memories, or in the conception of the house not built with hands but made up of inherited passions and loyalties, it has the same power of broadening and deepening the individual existence, of attaching it by mysterious links of kinship to all the mighty sum of human striving. Such a vision of the solidarity of life had never before come to Lily. She had had a premonition of it in the blind motions of her mating instinct, but they had been checked by the disintegrating influences of the life about her. All the men and women she knew were like atoms whirling away from each other in some wild centrifugal dance. Her first glimpse of the continuity of life had come to her that evening in Nettie Struthers' kitchen. The poor little working girl who had found strength to gather up the fragments of her life and build herself a shelter with them seemed to Lily to have reached the central truth of existence. It was a meager enough life on the grim edge of poverty, with scant margin for possibilities of sickness or mischance, but it had the frail, audacious permanence of a bird's nest built on the edge of a cliff, a mere wisp of leaves and straw, yet so put together that the lives entrusted to it may hang safely over the abyss. Yes, but it had taken two to build the nest, the man's faith as well as the woman's courage. Lily remembered Nettie's words. I knew he knew about me. Her husband's faith in her had made her renewal possible. It is so easy for a woman to become what the man she loves believes her to be. Well, Selden had twice been ready to stake his faith on Lily Bart, but the third trial had been too severe for his endurance. The very quality of his love had made it the more impossible to recall to life. If it had been a simple instinct of the blood, the power of her beauty might have revived it. But the fact that it struck deeper, that it was inextricably wound up with inherited habits of thought and feeling, made it as impossible to restore to growth as a deep-rooted plant torn from its bed. Selden had given her of his best, but he was as incapable as herself of an uncritical return to former states of feeling. An excerpt from Edith Wharton's The House of Mirth.